Hello, thank you for coming. Sorry, my voice is very croaky. I'm recovering from pneumonia, but I will try. If you can't hear me, let me know. I will try not to sound like a frog. It's been a bit touch and go, whoever I could actually speak today. Thank you so much for coming. This has been 5 years of blood, sweat and tears to get to the point of getting the funding for the project, and lots of preliminary work and the recommendation documents that are lying around in the foyer are part of that preliminary work. So it's really nice to now be here and have our lab. I'm not going to read it out. This is our programme. Have a look there. We have a wonderful array of guest speakers who we're really grateful to have here with us today. Also, after the formalities, you'll have a chance, if you want to look around the Holocaust galleries here at the Imperial War Museum. They were, it's not that recent now, it feels like it's recent. A few years ago, redesigned and recurated, and I think quite a refreshing new way of thinking about how to curate the Holocaust. So if you haven't had a look at it, please do go and have a look. We've also got in the foyer more free drinks. Please drink them. We've paid for them. Enjoy them. There's also various iPads and the screens where you can see some of the walkthrough videos of digital Holocaust projects around the world. And on your seats is the kind of exclusive look at our new policy briefing around AI and the Holocaust, not been published yet. To do a little bit of housekeeping, please leave the building by 9:15 if you can. We all have to get back to Sussex. It's a long way away. Some of us have to speak again tomorrow, so please just, we're finishing the night. If you could try and leave by 9:15, we have a lot of a kit to pack up. Of course, Steve has to drive all of it back on his own. Fire safety, please follow the green signs. Don't hang out in the galleries anymore if you hear the fire alarm. Obviously, there's no fire drill. And the meeting place is straight out the front, near the guns. That's what Claire said, in the park area. Only place that you'll hear that for fire safety drill. So I'm going to pass on, first of all, to our esteemed guest, Lena Altman, who's the co-CEO of our funder and partner, the Alfred Landecker Foundation. Lena and colleagues have come over, especially from Germany today, so we thank you very much. And I'll pass them back to you.
Should I come this way? I'm not going to rip it down. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Vicky. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a profound honor to stand before you tonight in this very historic space that's so unique in its coverage of conflicts and wartime experiences, and therefore quite special that we get to launch the Landecker Digital Memory Lab right in this place. I would like to begin by recognizing the esteemed individuals amongst us who have dedicated their lives to Holocaust memory and education and to major advances of research in this field. A special welcome to Lord Kahn, Minister of Faith, Communities and Resettlement, to Lord Pickles, UK Special Envoy for Post-Holocaust Issues and President of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, Professor Michael Luck, Deputy Vice-Chancellor and Provost of the University of Sussex, and Professor Cornel Sandvis, Executive Dean of the Faculty of Media, Arts and Humanities at Sussex. A special welcome to you, Vicky, you're the host, but I'm still welcoming you. To Professor Victoria Grace Richardson-Walden, without whom we wouldn't be here today, and to her very dedicated team, to Kate, to Philippa, to Mel, Steve, James, Ben, and Alex. A warm welcome too to our long-term partners at Oxford and Cambridge, Joe and Marietta. It's really lovely to see you here, whose work ties in very well indeed with this new endeavor. But most importantly, I extend my deepest gratitude and respect to the Holocaust survivors who've joined us here tonight. To Mala Trebich, Janine Weber, Rini Salt, to Susan Pollack, and to Dr. Agnes Kaposi. Your courage and commitment to sharing your stories touch us deeply, and you've truly inspired generations, and we owe it to you that we continue this critical work. To the relatives who've accompanied you tonight, thank you for carrying the legacy of remembrance onwards. Tonight, as we gather here to inaugurate the Landecker Digital Memory Lab, we do so in a world in which the memory of the Holocaust is increasingly under threat, its singularity called into question. A world in which facts are deliberately ignored, The rise of historical revisionism, Holocaust distortion and denial, exacerbated by the algorithmic functions, speed and reach of digital platforms. This all reminds us that vigilance is not optional. When never again is twisted into never happened, we as societies are in very big trouble. So how do we ensure that facts remain facts and fiction fiction, and that the Holocaust remains a relevant and resonant lesson for today and for tomorrow? That we preserve the humanity and truth of this darkest chapter. This lies at the very core of the mission of the Alfred Landecker Foundation, and it is the reason for our partnership with the University of Sussex in creating this groundbreaking initiative. Let me briefly explain why we as a foundation care. Our namesake, Alfred Landecker, was an assimilated Jew, a respected bookkeeper, father of 3, born in East Prussia, who later moved to Mannheim. He was deported by the Gestapo in 1942, taken first to Ispica, later murdered in Sobibor or in Belzec, where we will never really know. His daughter, and here it becomes complicated, as these stories sometimes tend to. So his daughter, Emilia Landecker, fell in love and later married the entrepreneur, staunch anti-Semite and National Socialist Albert Reimann Jr. Only recently, the Reimann family had the company's history independently researched and discovered that there was forced labor. And in any case, based on this discovery, they founded the Alfred Landecker Foundation. So Alfred Landecker for us stands symbolically for the 6 million European Jews murdered in the Holocaust. We're publishing his biography in just over 2 weeks, and we're very happy to tell his story. So from the very beginning, it was our mission to remember the crimes of the National Socialists and to combat anti-Semitism today, to protect Jewish life and to preserve democracy. We've done this consistently also in the digital space, because this doesn't remain in the analog space. And we're kicking it up a notch with a lab that we're launching tonight. This endeavor, we feel, comes at a very pivotal time. We're transitioning from an era where survivor testimony that thankfully we can still hear face to face today, but we're transitioning to a time where mediated memory, as James Young so aptly describes it, takes precedence. While this shift presents profound opportunities, it also introduces ethical and practical challenges. Virtual reality, 360-degree imaging, artificial intelligence, they all offer new ways to experience and learn from the past, yet they demand rigorous ethical scrutiny. The Landecker Digital Memory Lab is therefore not just another project. It is what we at least think is a beacon of innovation, collaboration, and purpose. This lab serves as a connective hub, really bridging the past with the future. And it'll provide a platform to consolidate and analyze digital Holocaust memory projects, building on best practice to set the stage for new, ethically sound digital interventions. The lab's living database will preserve critical insights from those working on digital Holocaust memory projects worldwide, curators, technologists, those who work in museums, at historic Holocaust sites, educators of all kinds, really. And the lab will empower and equip them with the tools and highest quality digital content to navigate the digital age responsibly. Under your visionary leadership, Vicky, and of course, under the leadership of your exceptional team, the lab combines expertise in Holocaust memory, digital literacy, and emerging technologies. And your work already exemplifies a very interdisciplinary and international approach, and we feel that that's needed to confront the complexities of Holocaust memory in this digital age. And so we believe that you, together with your colleagues, and hopefully a continuous stream of visiting researchers, the lab will become a cornerstone for memory professionals, curators, educators, and researchers worldwide. So, as digital technologies reshape how we engage with history, You, Vicky, and team, you will ask these difficult questions about agency, about embodiment, and the ethical use of these tools. How do we use digital interventions to make the Holocaust accessible without trivializing its gravity? How do we harness AI responsibly to combat distortion rather than enable it? Ladies and gentlemen, tonight marks the beginning of a new chapter in Holocaust commemoration. The Landecker Digital Memory Lab is more than a research project. It is a testament to our joint commitment to fighting with all of our might against the forces of denial and distortion. And it's a call to action for each of us to safeguard the truth, the stories of the unthinkable. I want to thank the Imperial War Museum for hosting us here tonight and for providing a space where the past and present converge meaningfully. To Victoria and her team, we place our trust in your vision, no pressure, and we look forward to the innovations you will lead in this vital field. The work of memory, of commemoration is never done. The digital realm is our new frontier, the space we all inhabit, and it is ours to shape. Together, we will ensure that the lessons of the Holocaust remain alive, relevant, and impactful for generations to come. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm now going to spend about 15 minutes or so introducing the lab to you. Please do come and ask me questions afterwards as well. I'm sure we won't cover everything. I don't want to talk to you for an hour. I want to kind of start back when I initiated conversations with Stefan Joss at the Alfred Landecker Foundation, which I think was 2022, 2 years ago, post-COVID, so I have a sense of time. I had just been doing fieldwork across Europe at the time, visiting Holocaust organizations, and had, during the pandemic, held online discussions. And it was really clear to me that there was a huge digital imagination in these organizations, but most of them really lacked digital infrastructure. What do I mean by that? On one hand, most institutions had at least one colleague, and sometimes only one, who was really enthusiastic about digital development, and they had big ideas about exploring new and emerging technologies. On the other hand, across both major and small sites, many of the digital projects I explored were incomplete, had errors and bugs, or were totally broken. Some once well-used apps, such as Anne's Amsterdam, no longer worked. I couldn't connect to the Wi-Fi at Auschwitz State Museum Memorial to access survivor testimony via QR codes. In one office, I saw stacks of unusable iPads, no longer compatible with software updates for a site-based app. The Liberation app at Dachau could only exist for a year due to licensing issues related to a private archive that owned many of the Liberation photographs, and much of that year had been tainted by the pandemic lockdown. When asking about digital departments and digital staff, the phrases I often heard were, "Oh, I do it in my spare time. I am the digital department," and "Oh, I squeeze it in alongside my main duties." And I've seen those people in the pub after a conference on their phone managing social media accounts on their own. So it seemed really important to make a research-informed intervention to provide some kind of support for digital practice in Holocaust memory and education. Now, this was not to assume an inevitable digital future, but to recognize how ubiquitous digital technologies are already in our lives. And that's whether you own a personal device or not. And specifically relevant in our context, that digital cultures are shaping public knowledge and understanding of the Holocaust with or without the presence of Holocaust organizations. As yet, it was also clear there was no sense of a coherent global Holocaust memory and education effort to strategically manage this digital intervention that was happening with or without them. Oh, as many of you know, just after the Alfred Landecker Foundation very kindly confirmed their support for the lab, and I think it was within 5 days, I gave birth and went on maternity leave. I was only away from work for 9.5 months, but during that short absence, the urgency of this project became ever more prominent. Holocaust denial, distortion, contestation, and trivialization have become more visible over the last decade or so, and we saw a peak during COVID. And this has been particularly perpetuated by the logics of social media platforms. But since October the 7th, they have been amplified to such an extent that questioning the Holocaust has become seemingly normalized in mainstream public discourse. And some schools here in the UK have turned their back on Holocaust education programs, claiming, oh, it's too political or too insensitive at this time to do Holocaust education. So it seems now it's no longer important to make this research-informed intervention. It's become imperative that we do this work. There we go. Technology doesn't work. No. Thank you. We don't need a PowerPoint. I'm trying to argue at the moment that Holocaust memory in education is confronting both a sustainability crisis and an existential one. And what I mean by that is, on one hand, as professional practice goes increasingly digital, there needs to be more strategic intervention to maintain digital assets. There's this idea that I still hear that, oh, we need the digital to keep things for longer, but the digital has far more loss than physical materiality. And if we don't do that, all this digital memory work disappears and the effort is somewhat wasted. So that's a sustainability crisis. The existential crisis is what I was mentioning just before, that after October the 7th, lots of Holocaust memory and education organizations are going back to the fundamental question of what is it we do? What is the aim of Holocaust education and memory? Should we be talking about contemporary anti-Semitism? Should we be thinking about the Holocaust in a historical continuity of anti-Semitism before and after? And have we failed? Has never again happened in one way or another across the political spectrum? You know, these conversations are happening, and it's this existential question of what is the point of Holocaust education? And to address this double crisis, what we're thinking about in our work is kind of three key issues. One, I need to rethink the priority of getting people to organizations, sites, and resources, and flipping of this. So the priority becomes about getting their expertise, and that's their digitized data and professional knowledge, into public digital spaces. And that's not to say we think people shouldn't be going to Holocaust sites. We do. And we think Holocaust education needs to exist in Holocaust institutions. But if the population has already decided the Holocaust didn't exist, they're not going to come to Auschwitz, they're not going to come to Bergen-Belsen, they're not going to come to Dachau. So you need to address them in the space where they are first. And we don't yet prioritize that within Holocaust institutions. Yeah, thank you, tech. Yeah, okay, don't worry. This is the beautiful irony. If you're going to talk about digital technology, it's going to go wrong. The second point then for us is the need to adapt long-term strategies for digital interventions and interventions into digital spaces. And that we need to adopt an interdisciplinary, cross-sector and global approach to this. It's not enough to say, oh, the computer scientists will deal with it, the Holocaust educators can deal with it, Germany knows the answer, the UK knows the answer. The digital doesn't work in nice local areas or in silos of disciplines. Thank you. It's giving me a Mac. Never going to end well. And the third then is around expanding digital literacies and capacities across the sector so that the more long-term joined up and most importantly critical approaches can be adopted. One thing we found as example at Bergen-Belsen, that the heritage people and the creative and tech people we interviewed had a sort of 10-year debate about reconstruction. They were using the word to mean a different thing. And no one had had that conversation. The disciplines are talking about this word in different ways. So, what are we going to do then? Our mission statement is really simple, as mission statements should be, but ambitious at the same time. We want to ensure the sustainability of Holocaust memory in the digital age. Who we aim to work for and the with is really important here. These are our beneficiaries, but part of the lab is about collaborative work. Firstly, Holocaust heritage and education professionals, and I include here the Holocaust survivors with us and many more who have worked with these projects. Holocaust survivors are people who have not just survived a horrific genocide, but are also often professional educators and professionals in other remits as well. Tech and creative specialists, academics, policymakers, and funders. We have 8 kind of core objectives or output areas with our work. The first is publications. All of our work is underpinned by being research informed. The second, as Lena mentioned, is our living database archive. Here we're going to have, as you've seen on the iPads, in there recordings or walkthroughs of digital projects around the world, complemented by interviews. We don't feel you can just learn by looking at somewhat digital as a text, but also understanding how all the different experiences of the different experts involved in that, their ideas of what happened and the process. The digital is iterative. It is not like a literature text where you get the book and you understand the book. And like the example I just gave of Bergen-Belsen, you start to hear that the tech people had a totally different understanding to the educators and the communications people about what that project could do. And those conversations are really helpful for people creating future digital projects. We're going to launch a new publishing space called Digital Memory Dialogues. And that will be about creating these interdisciplinary dialogues. So it's not a traditional academic journal. Everything we're doing is slightly against the traditional academic whatever. But it's about having different people from different sectors writing a response to an editorial piece and then coming together in a live public debate or discussion. We're going to run a series of design sprints with project partners across Europe and in Brazil and Australia. And these, again, will bring together those different stakeholders I mentioned to co-create design solutions to questions. We're not bringing people together, again, to create another online exhibition or another VR app. We want to address some of those big questions like, what is the place of AI in Holocaust memory? Can we come up with a design solution to that question? Before I lose my voice completely, I'm just going to have some... We're also going to create a suite of online training resources, particularly aimed at people in Holocaust memory and education organizations around digital literacies and digital capacities. And the aim there is to help people understand what they're doing. What is VR? What can it do? What is AI? What can it do? Therefore, is it worth investing in it in our institution? If you don't understand what the tech is possible, then you're not going to be able to use it in all its efficiency. We're also launching, as of today, a consultancy service, again, free, thanks to our funding. Partly we'll be doing this through some funders, working with their grantees, helping them with their digital projects from the pre-submission stage through to impact analysis, but it's also open to anyone embarking on a digital project that wants to come and get some advice. We will continue to do policy engagement. We're really looking forward to working with the IRA in December, and we will hope to continue finding policy spaces where we can talk, and I think that's so important that if we are just talking to individual organisations, we're not thinking about this kind of interdisciplinary and international approach. And then finally, we will run 3 expos. Again, we're not calling them an academic conference. We want to bring in tech and creative industry peoples into this space, as well as academics and Holocaust memory and education professionals. The first expo will be in June, Sussex. You can still apply. We're looking for proposals till December the 5th, I think. The second one will be in Bavaria, and the third one will be in Belgrade. And they will be every other year in our project. Who are we then? I'll show you. First of all, our core team is based at the University of Sussex. It's me. I can't have my photograph taken, I'm sorry, I try. Sort of squint. Other people are far better at this, as you'll see in the following photos. This is our core research team here. Myself and Kate have worked together for several years. Ben will be joining us in January. He's over there in the back of the room, first time we've met in person today. And this is the rest of our team at Sussex: Philippa, Mal, Steve, James and Alex. All are in the room today. James is unfortunately not very well. But if everyone can just give a quick wave, stand up a little bit. Okay, so we're also working with 9 partners. With our partners are the people that were, or the organisations we're holding the design sprints and the expos with. These are the Auschwitz Jewish Center Foundation in Poland, Falstad Museum, Memorial and Human Rights Center in Norway, Film Universität Babelsberg, Konrad Wolf in Germany, Kaiser Gedenkstätte Dachau in Germany, Melbourne Holocaust Museum in Australia, Museo do Holocausto in Brazil, the National Holocaust Centre and Museum here in the UK, Terraforming in Serbia, and then Camp Westerbork in the Netherlands. And our collaborators are here. The Association of Jewish Refugees and the Claims Conference are 2 of the funders we're aiming to do our consultancy work with. And then the Digital Collective Memory Platform, which is managed by the iRights Lab and funded by the EVZ Foundation, is a great platform for anyone working in collective memory on a digital basis, and we'll be doing some of our events through there and we're working with that network. So if you're working in that field and you're not aware of that platform, please join it. And as Lena said about visiting fellows, our visiting fellows this year are coming from the University Bern in 2 weeks. And then also from the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. We also have a massive editorial board. I'm not going to read through all their names. You'll be glad to know. You can see all their profiles on our website as well. But just to get a sense here of the international flavour again, from Norway, from India, from the US, from Israel, from Australia, from Canada, from Poland, Germany, Switzerland, Italy, Austria, Serbia, Spain, Brazil. And that will be the editorial board behind our digital memory dialogues space. So what I will say, though, is you can get a sense of the team as it is, this international team, and with each of those partners, the events that we launch will be inviting new audiences to engage in our work. But the work, you'll see the recommendation reports in the other room, the work that's led to this and the work that we do is always about bringing lots of different expertise together. I mean, people in the room, and also there's about 200 people on the Zoom call, many of whom have been involved in this project already. So we are much more than the core team at Sussex, and we are much more than the people and the organisations on our website. You can all get involved as well. We have a plentiful array of social media icons there. You'll see there is no X for a reason. But yeah, you can find us on Bluesky, Mastodon, Instagram, Threads, Facebook, and LinkedIn. That was a good test of logos. Our website, our new website is there, launched this week. Email address is there, but there are many other ways that you can get involved. You can shout about the lab, just go ahead, lab, or have a conversation with us on social media. And please, with the launch, please use that hashtag. You can read, follow, comment, and share our blog posts. We try and get a blog out pretty much every week, normally on a Thursday. Don't test us on that every week. You can get in touch with ideas for collaborations. If you're thinking about developing a digital project, we're really happy to talk to you about that. More importantly for us, we want to archive your digital projects. We want to interview you if you've been involved in them, from survivors, from people in Holocaust organizations, to people working in tech companies, to academics. I know there are many people on the call, many people in the room whose projects we have not yet archived. We want to get in touch. You can also, as I said, submit a proposal to our expo in 2025. Please do. We are trying to make it an explorative space for people to learn, share, connect, and co-create digital Holocaust futures. There will be an arcade. There will be roundtables with people from the tech industry. There will be academic panels as well. There will be an array of different activities and some seaside dining in the summer, if that doesn't bring you in. And also, as I said, be one of the first people to take advantage of our consultancy program. There are lots of ways to be involved in the lab. The lab is not just Sussex, it's not just us and the Landecker Foundation. It is as international as the people who are involved in it, and we welcome all of you into our fold. Thank you very much. And now I'm very happy not to have to speak much more. I'm going to pass over to Lord Pickles, who's UK Special Envoy for Post-Holocaust Issues and currently President of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance.
Greetings. It's wonderful to be here at the launch of the Digital Memory Lab and to follow the wise words of Professor Victoria Richardson-Walden, the new director. I'm a massive fan of Vicky, and it's a wonderful, she's this wonderfully powerful voice of calm in a subject that's given to hysteria and misfortune. It's a perfect time to launch this significant initiative. I'm this year's chair of the International Remembrance Alliance, We're a global community of government experts who focus on promoting and strengthening and advancing Holocaust education, remembrance, and research. Over the past 2.5 decades, IRA has safeguarded sites, challenged distortive narratives. Our experts are the backbone of everything we do. They fearlessly tackle complacency, warped misinformation in equal measure. Our experts spotted the mushroom of Holocaust distortion in 2010. They immediately understood how this threatened liberal democracy. Holocaust denial is not mainstream. Few serious people will publicly say the Holocaust is an invention. Distortion is different. It's often misdiagnosed as a lesser evil. Distortion takes many forms, with two dominating trends. Firstly, trivial comparison and minimizing of numbers and treatment, suggesting global warming is a climate holocaust, or anti-vaxxers see themselves as being persecuted to the same extent as Jews under Hitler, trivializes the suffering of the Holocaust. The second type masquerades as freedom of speech or earnest inquiry. I was once attacked on what was called Twitter in those days for saying that Treblinka was a death camp. My attacker said I couldn't be more wrong. It was a transit camp where a few people died due to influenza and nothing more. This question has become mainstream with the advent of artificial intelligence. The threats associated with AI in safeguarding the record of Holocaust are many, including the potential for the manipulation by malicious actors, the introduction of falsehood, and the dissemination of biased information, and the gradual erosion of public trust in authentic records. The latest wave of anti-Semitism arrived as a perfect storm, when reliable news outlets are at their weakest. Newspaper readership has plummeted. Regional and local newspapers have, for all practical purposes, just simply disappeared. And the once powerful nightly news bulletins have diminished in influence. This year it's estimated that 52% of the UK's population relied on news via social media platforms, where there is little moderation or balance. One of the most graphic examples of this false narrative is the use of AI to create deepfakes. As this decade progresses, the number of survivors who witnessed the Holocaust as children will move from contemporary memory into history. In anticipation of this, much effort has been made to secure testimony and to protect archives. The very depth of this knowledge might be our Achilles' heels. You don't need programming skills to create a deep fake. You can make it for free in less than 30 seconds using many deepfake applications. We now live in an era where seeing is no longer believing. The consequences of cheap, widespread fakery is likely to be profound. It's possible to imagine survivors' testimony being manipulated, that we see familiar Holocaust survivors having false words put into their mouth. You know, the concentration camp, it wasn't so bad. We had plenty of food. It may have been a bit plain, but there was plenty there. We played cards on a Thursday with the SS, and such like. So how do we meet this challenge? The first thing that we need to understand is that AI is here to stay. That governments will always be playing catch-up to cheaply, widely used AI. The second is we ourselves will use AI to improve our archives. It will find links and connections. We'll be able to use it to improve teaching and training, to add to our translation skills. We will need to enhance AI literacy and research skills so that users know how to understand and verify AI-produced text. Key to all this is understanding large language models, and those in the large language model community will need to understand the Holocaust to ensure its accurate representation. Put simply, large language models are the type of artificial intelligence that uses machine learning algorithms to replicate human language. It uses massive data sets to develop its ability to translate language, predict text, and generate content. As large language models become more complex and more human-like, they raise more ethical questions about their diversity, energy requirements, ability to make decisions, and use as to its content creators. This is why large language models are so important in our field. The big tech companies struggle to understand the issues around the Holocaust in the same way we struggle to understand AI. The intersection of understanding between policymakers, AI experts, and Holocaust experts needs to grow. This is why we will be focusing on large language models during the special AI conference in London as part of the UK's IRA presidency. The conference will bring together those involved in creating large language models and our experts. It's an opportunity to learn from each other and to expand our work. More than a decade ago, IRA adopted a working definition of Holocaust denial and distortion. We made countering Holocaust distortion a pillar of the IRA strategy. With the support of voluntary contributions from Germany, Israel, and the United States, the IRA established a global task force against Holocaust distortion. Now the dangers of Holocaust distortion are addressed in the EU strategy for combating anti-Semitism and fostering Jewish life. The United Nations passed a resolution condemning Holocaust distortion. Recently, IRA held a conference in Romania in partnership with the OSCE and ODIHR. Romania became one of the first countries to implement the new IRA UNESCO capacity building training to counter Holocaust distortion. Romania successfully localised the campaign Protect the Facts. In the UK, we've just completed our capacity building training to counter Holocaust distortion with non-government organisations and also with government policymakers. It's clear that our work is far from over. Now, those of us involved in concern with Holocaust continue to mourn the death of our honorary chairman, Yuda Bauer, who passed just a few weeks ago. And I've been thinking about him, as you would imagine, quite a bit in recent days. He's an intensely bright man, an intensely clever man, but he had a way of taking the most complex ideas and putting them into very simple language. I remember that you had once addressed our current dilemma when he said that a half-truth is worse than a half-lie. And we're entering that world where we have to hold on closely to clarity. We have to hold on closely to empathy. But above all, we need to hold on to our archives and keep them uncorrupted and keep them clear and keep them accessible. Because what we need to ensure is that the public always have that ability to say, nah, that's just not true. Always, everything we do is about the truth. And nobody should be frightened of the truth. Thank you.
Next, we're going to have two speakers from the University of Sussex. First, Professor Michael Luck, who is our Deputy Vice-Chancellor and Provost. Michael is stepping in last minute, which we're very grateful for our Vice-Chancellor, Sasha Roseneal, who is unfortunately not very well and can't be with us today. So thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you. Let me say that I was always going to come this evening, even though I didn't have a particular role to play, and that was because this is important to me personally as well as to the university. I will just begin with a memory from when I was a student at secondary school here in London, way back in the 1980s, and we had a sixth form conference on the Holocaust, where we had a number of survivors who came and spoke with us, and we were broken out into different groups, and we had very direct personal conversations. And I remember in particular the impact on several of my classmates of those very direct conversations. So I understand and recognise and feel something very strongly for the work that is being done here and that we're talking about today. The Landecker Digital Memory Lab sits across the Weidenfeld Institute for Jewish Studies and the University of Sussex's Digital Humanities Lab in the Faculty of Media, Arts and Humanities, and Cornell, the Executive Dean of that faculty, will speak after me. The lab will act as a central hub for interdisciplinary knowledge exchange and research on digital Holocaust memory, and it will help to combat the growing challenge to expert knowledge on the subject in digital spaces, as Lord Pickles has just been talking about. This is the largest grant for humanities research in the history of the university, and it matters to Sussex in particular because of our history in relation to Holocaust commemoration at Sussex. We are the first university in England to have a Holocaust memorial event. This has a special place in our annual calendar. It attracts a large and diverse audience of staff, students, alumni, students from local schools and members of the local community. It's part of the university's commitment to engagement with our local communities and to ensure that the tragic mistakes of the past are never repeated or forgotten, and that tackling hatred, discrimination and racism in the world today is a part of our work in the university. But we also have, with the Weidenfeld Institute and the Centre for German Jewish Studies, world-leading centres for research on the Holocaust with us at Sussex. And I think it's important to say that philanthropy is particularly important in supporting this work in the current context. One might argue that now, at a moment when there are several contemporary conflicts and increased political polarisation, and with an upsurge of misinformation and disinformation on social media, as we've been hearing about, this has never been more important, especially with the Holocaust being more than 80 years ago, and the personal testimonies therefore increasingly difficult to hear. At Sussex, we have a new strategy for the next 10 years that will focus on several themes, but in particular on human flourishing. In that context, our historians are really important, and our historians at Sussex are the most highly cited in the UK. We are the right place to be doing this work. But a second theme is digital and data futures, building on not just groundbreaking work in media and communication studies, but also our expertise in digital humanities. And I will say in particular that in many ways is what the Landecker Digital Memory Lab is all about. But we also have a very strong focus on artificial intelligence. We were working in artificial intelligence at the very beginning, before it became as popular as it is now. And in fact, I will say also that has been the work that I've been focusing on since the 1980s. So I understand the benefits that can be gained, but also the real perils that we may have from these technologies. I just want to end with a few words from the Vice-Chancellor, Sasha Rosenhill. She says, "Sussex has a long-standing commitment to Holocaust education and research. In our fast-changing digital world, in which profound misrepresentation and Holocaust denial are amplified across multiple media platforms and echo chambers, we have a duty to preserve historical records and personal memories in order to ensure that future generations have access to the full truth about the Holocaust. We are hugely grateful to the Alfred Landecker Foundation for the trust it's placing in Sussex to deliver on this collective responsibility through the Landecker Digital Memory Lab. The lab will also make a major contribution to two of the strategic themes of our new university strategy, which will be launched in early 2025, Digital and Data Futures and Human Flourishing." Thank you.
I would like to add to these thanks and say thank you very much to the Alfred Landecker Foundation for making today's event and the Landecker Digital Memory Lab possible, to Professor Victoria Richardson Walden for her intellectual leadership, rigor and innovation in leading this project, and to the Foundation for their partnership with the University of Sussex. I struggle to think of work that could be of greater importance. But secondly, I would like to briefly speak to the wider scientific context in which the Landecker Digital Memory Lab sits, and the centrality of arts and humanities to it. One of the best known, but possibly also most misunderstood and misquoted aspects of Theodor Adorno's work is the claim that poetry had become, if not impossible, then nevertheless barbaric after Auschwitz. In Ohne Leitbild and Notes on Literature, Adorno later tried to clarify that he was seeking to describe a condition in which art is impossible, at least in its entertaining manifestations and functions intolerable, and yet at the same time indispensable and of critical importance. Half a century later, both sides of Adorno's claim have proven painfully true. Meaningful art, meaningful life, and the preservation of the clear, obvious, overwhelming memory and lessons of the Holocaust, the very lowest bar of our obligation to its victims and sufferers, have proven as challenging as anticipated by Adorno. Sorry, I'm touching your screen. And at the same time, post-war history generally, and the past 3 decades of the digital age and its political and cultural transformations in particular, only amplify the existential importance of remembering the Holocaust. Oh, sorry. Amplify the existential importance of the Holocaust, of remembering the Holocaust, in fighting anti-Semitism and strengthening democracy, as summarized in the Alfred Landecker Foundation's mission. In doing so, it is art as both practice and as academic discipline. It is the humanities and the cultural and social sciences which, as time passes, assume an ever more vital role in preserving this memory and allowing us to inhere and enact the lessons of the Holocaust and its study. However incomplete our efforts hitherto have been, only heightens their centrality. At the heart of our disciplines is the ability to tell stories, our own story of being human, and to understand how and to what effect they are told. To my grandparents, encounters with the Holocaust were immediate and unmediated. The marginalization of friends and neighbors, their subsequent disappearance, or witnessing the indescribable horrors of industrial mass annihilation and genocide radiating from the eastern death camps onto the German transportation and rail network. To my parents, growing up in the immediate post-war years, the Holocaust was tangible and manifest in the recollection of those around them as much as in the places themselves, such as my mother's visit as a teenage girl to Bergen-Belsen, which profoundly and manifestly shaped her own moral compass. The balance between direct experiences and mediated learnings firmly began to shift towards the latter in my generation. Alongside family memories, documentaries, books, and films, it was through education, academic study, and work in the third sector that my understanding of the Holocaust was formed. Having studied the history of Nazism and worked in the local organization commemorating the victims of the Holocaust, the prospect of being able to combine this commitment to history and remembrance with the study of media and the role of filmic representations of Holocaust first brought me to the University of Sussex some 30 years ago, and mirroring its foundational commitment to interdisciplinarity. Today, as much as our everyday life is shaped through and lived in digital spaces and platforms, subsequent generations are increasingly dependent on digital content, informing an understanding of the Holocaust, as last year's study of the Alfred Landecker Foundation demonstrated. The Holocaust is not only modernity's cataclysmic event. Preserving its memory and enacting the learnings that follow from its analyses are at the core of humanity's future. In the best tradition of the humanities, this project studies the now to preserve the learnings of our study of the past. I'm deeply grateful to everyone who is part of this project and everyone who has made it possible. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I should add to that there's, we get to stand in front of people as academics and talk about our work, but there is a huge number of people in our administration at the university who fix the budgets, look after public affairs, do media training, do all the other stuff, and they are the people that allow these projects to happen. So a massive thank you to all of those individuals as well. I think I counted it was something like 40 people involved in helping getting this bid put together, so I won't name them because we'll be here all day. Last but certainly not least, we have closing remarks from Lord Khan. So thank you so much for being here. Lord Khan is Minister for Faith, Communities and Resettlement.
Thank you. It's an honor to be at the launch of the Digital Holocaust Memory Lab and to be here in such an appropriate venue, home to an incredible Holocaust exhibition. We cannot deny the growing importance of digital memory as we enter an era where first-hand witnesses will no longer be with us. We must also recognize the sophistication and widespread use of artificial intelligence in preserving Holocaust memory. AI has the potential to solve many of the world's challenges, but we must not overlook the risks and the dangers it can bring, social manipulation being one of the key concerns. That is why I believe the launch of the Digital Holocaust Memory Lab is so important. We have seen in recent months how the Holocaust has been weaponized. Many demonstrations across Europe, America, and Africa have in some shape or form referred to the Holocaust. Much of the language is steeped in Holocaust denial and distortion. Holocaust denial is a form of anti-Semitism. Some governments declare it illegal and punishable under the law, and it has changed over time. Once, it referred to those who claimed 6 million Jews were not murdered and there were no gas chambers. Today, these outright deniers are few and mostly relegated to the fringe. The problems we face today are more complex and more subtle. They are painted in the shades of grey rather than starkly black or white. Yet, that does not render them less dangerous or mean that the need to address these problems is less compelling. Shockingly, organizations involved in the remembrance and education of the Holocaust are increasingly coming under attack. Nazi symbols, including the swastika, have been used to weaponize the Holocaust against the Jewish community. We have seen the Star of David on the Israeli national flag replaced with a swastika. Some protesters have used Nazi symbols to imply that another Shoah is coming for the Jews. Holocaust inversion is being part of the iconography of anti-Semitism. Increasingly, this involves the abuse of Holocaust memory. Alongside this weaponization, we are moving into an era where we will no longer have first-hand witnesses to the Holocaust. This opens the door to those wishing to sow doubt about the Holocaust. That is why it is so important that we ensure that Holocaust education and remembrance projects that have used digital technology are carefully preserved. We have all had the experience of seeing an innovative project that works for a couple of years until technology moves on and we lose access, leaving nothing but a pile of unused tech gathering dust in the corner of the office or classroom. In light of this, the development of the Digital Holocaust Memory Lab is timely. Mapping the Holocaust digital landscape is an important first step. Digital Holocaust memory is relatively new, but is developing at pace. Digital responses vary in quality. Some are excellent. Others are at borders of distortion and denial. Digital tools, including AI, mean anyone can get involved. It does not require extensive knowledge, and that is the danger. Deepfakes, for example, do not have to be that good to have impact. I hope this initiative becomes a key tool in the fight against Holocaust denial and distortion, complementing our commitment to a new National Holocaust Memorial and Learning Centre. The memorial will stand as a permanent reminder of the truth of the Holocaust. The Learning Centre will use the best of modern research to tell an accurate account of the Holocaust from British perspectives. Standing up for the truth and countering distortion are more essential now than ever. And more than ever before, they require strong partnership between all those institutions who care about the truth. By virtue of being the last speaker, I think it's only right that I use this opportunity to thank the director of the Landecker Digital Memory Lab based at Sussex University, Professor Victoria Grace Richardson-Walden, aka Vicky. This is a profoundly important initiative for the Holocaust education and remembrance sector. I would also like to thank the Landecker Foundation. Thank you for your eloquent words, Lena Altman. Without the generous grant, none of this could have happened and would have been possible. Thank you to the Sussex Weidenfield Institute of Jewish Studies, an interdisciplinary research hub that places the Jewish experience in a broader context and who are an integral part of the project. Further thanks go to Professor Sasha Rosneil, Vice-Chancellor, Professor Michael Luck, Deputy Vice-Chancellor and Provost, and Professor Cornel Sandbos, the Executive Dean of the Faculty, and also my good friend, the Associate Director Lenny Rolls. Finally, I would also like to thank the Noble Lord Pickles, the current chair of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance and UK's post-Holocaust issues envoy. Lord Pickles has been a fantastic support and help whilst I've been promoting and leading on behalf of the government the Holocaust Memorial Bill. I really appreciate your counsel. Nowhere else you see an example where a Lancastrian listens to a Yorkshireman so much. and thank you everybody in particular. I've been really heartened and people have made such eloquent contributions, and I'm so glad to see young people here in particular. I know at times it might not be everything interesting, but it's such an important point to see young people here and everybody here working together, and none more than Holocaust survivors. I pray for your good health, and may you be amongst us for as long as possible. I thank you for everything, for sharing your stories, and we hope that your testimonies, your stories are captured for so many generations so we can learn, and actually, as Lord Pickles says it, we can learn from the truth. Thank you so much indeed.
we're going to have about 10 minutes for questions to me about the Landecker Digital Memory Lab. If you have questions about other speakers, you can talk to them over wine afterwards. Are there any questions in the room or online? Kate and Philippa are well, I've got the microphone. Kate's got the microphone over there. But there's a floating mic. There's also the online chat, so feel free.
Thank you very much. I'm actually interested in the flyer that you have shared with everybody in the room, because this have a title about, does AI have a place in the future of Holocaust memory? So I'm actually personally interested in what kind of role will AI play in Landecker Digital Memory Lab, and is AI going to be a research focus of your future work? Thank you.
Thank you, Ariel. And this is payback for 4 years of PhD supervision. You asked me the first question in the room. Thank you. It's a very important question. Thank you very much. Absolutely. And I mean, this is when we had early conversations, and me and Stefan were like, what will your workshops be about? What will the design sprints be about? And we thought, well, actually, we can't make that decision in 2022 or 2024 because the technology changes so fast. And it would be wrong to say, well, these are the things we're going to focus on, these are the things we're going to spend all of your money on. And they go, oh, well, no one's using X anymore. So, but that's, or Twitter, it's not called Twitter, but that's what we decided we were going to spend the money on. And the AI explosion has happened in that last 2 years since those conversations happened. And I think that's one of the important things about the project is looking at what's happening and listening to the sector's needs, listening to what the wider digital culture is doing with the Holocaust as a subject matter. So at the moment, AI is at the core of our focus. It wasn't planned to be. I mean, it was one of the recommendation reports that we did. At the time, we didn't find many people to be involved in it. Michael, unfortunately, wasn't at Sussex yet, so we went away of his work. But yeah, at the moment, it is become almost serendipitously part of our work, and that's how our work will be led, always by what is going on and what needs that research-informed lens. So thank you very much for the question.
Thank you. So how will the Digital Memory Lab go about ensuring that everything they're bringing together, which sounds incredible, and I think kudos to the team, it's a great initiative, but thinking about in particular the education sector and Holocaust education, what are the plans to ensure that teachers, educators and practitioners are able to engage in what you're bringing together and that collaborative approach, and that they can use this in classrooms? And I think one of the things you've spoken about is digital literacy, and I'm just interested to hear a bit more about plans for particularly for the classroom.
Okay, really good question. I mean, to begin with our kind of 5-year strategy at the moment, our focus is to work more with NGOs like yours. Clem works for the Holocaust Educational Trust, and work on the digital capacities and literacies in the NGOs, in the hope that the work that you and other organisations can then do with teachers. We're more than willing to help with the teacher training work. But I think for us, it's one of the problems we've found in those early scoping interviews that I did in 2022, 23, and a little bit this year, was that when you speak to a lot of people, not in every, or maybe USC Shah Foundation is a great example of an organisation that knows its tech, has a proper tech department, is a tech department. But there are other organisations where they don't understand the potentials of a technology, both in its potential challenges and opportunities, or even what it is and what it can do. So often we've heard people think of VR as just 360 film, and not as the ability to have machine learning built into it, to have the ability to explore a space and even use the hand controllers, right? A lot of organisations just using the head-mounted display. And so our kind of key work for the moment is working with those organisations to help them build capacities and literacies, and then go out and think about how they do their work with schools or other forms of educational spaces. That's what my voice is going. Kate, is there one online now? There. Oh yeah, do you want to take one from...
Hi. Apart from the consultation work, my question is, are you creating a digital archive of digital archives and initiatives? And then which shape will that digital archive you're creating take?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question to ask, Bea. And I would be really clear, we're not just digitising your testimonies that you've already digitised and have different servers, right? Because that would be a slight waste of time. What we're interested in things like the interface. So how does a particular digital archive look? How can users explore that? And then capturing a walkthrough of that user experience so that other archives can learn from different kinds of user experiences. And as we found in the workshops, I know you were part of at least one of those workshops, each organisation is doing the idea of a testimony collection as an interface, as a digital experience so differently. Some people want to segment, and some people want to go through maps and compare stories. Others are very kind of true and have a kind of strong idea about provenance and only long-form testimony, and they're not necessarily talking to each other about their practices. And sometimes an organisation will say, oh, we want to try this thing. Oh, I wonder how you do it. And you go, well, actually, there's 20 other organisations that have done this already. Do you want to listen to the challenges they faced, the struggles they got in getting funding, how they convinced people to get it, how they worked with the tech companies, what went wrong, when they screwed up and gave someone all their data and why they wish they hadn't. And so that's the aim of the archive. So we're capturing walkthroughs of what it's like as a user to experience not just archives, but you'll see here computer games, VR experiences, AR apps, a whole range of digital experiences, but also the interviews with those who produce them, from the creative and tech side, from the heritage side, from the educators. And still one of my favourite interviews was someone at the reception desk at a memorial museum. And after talking to the educators, they said, oh, we know exactly who gets this app. Everyone gets it. It's wonderful. And then the person on the front desk went, I choose who gets the app. I decide who looks like they really want to be here. But no one knows the person who gatekeeps the access to this particular app is someone without a history degree or any Holocaust education. And I thought that was wonderful. Like, in each institution, when you start doing these interviews, even within an institution, the different departments don't know what they're doing, aren't talking to each other always. And you'll often start to reveal these tensions between what the educational teams thought, what the communications teams thought, and it's fascinating. I mean, even from an institution perspective, to start to hear those interviews for yourself and what you can learn about your own organisation. So that's part of our aim. Any more questions online, I think, as well?
Okay, so we've got some questions coming in on the live chat. I'm kind of going to summarise them because some are about higher education and most of them are about artificial intelligence, which is the hot topic in the room. So some people are wondering, how are we going to use AI in higher education? Are we concerned about the ways in which AI is going to be influenced by society, distortion, anti-Semitism and information? And I guess embedded within these questions are, does the lab also consider AI for good in any of this as well? So, broad question, Vicky, sorry.
I think the bigger question about HE is probably bigger than our remit as the Landecker Digital Memory Lab. Maybe we should be called the Landecker AI Memory Lab, I don't know. It's starting to feel like it. And maybe Michael can speak to some of those concerns people later about the sector. I mean, I've certainly, I felt quite disturbed I'm in several social media groups of media teachers, because I'm on the Media Education Association board in the UK, so we see what media teachers in schools and colleges are doing, and how quick media teachers are just using AI in their classroom. We'll say, that's great, kids just make their essays with it. You're media teachers. Of all the people, you should be critically engaging them with the media. AI is a media form. And I find that quite shocking, that when you challenge them in these conversations, they're like, no, it's just a tool, it's just useful, it's like the internet. It's like the early 90s again. You're like, yeah, but we also critically engage with the internet, right? We're media teachers, that's what we do. No? Okay. And that it does concern me how quickly people adopt these technologies in any sector without thinking critically about them. I think you should think critically about how you set your classroom up. It's not just about the digital technologies. There's something weird about the adoption of AI in the educational context, where it's just sort of been accepted as, we're just going to use it for everything. And students are just going to use it to write all their essays. One teacher said to me in one of these groups that no student can produce a piece of work better than ChatGPT-4. I was like, oh, there's something wrong with your teaching if that's what's the output you're getting. So I've run every question from one of our old courses through ChatGPT, and it's never written a passable response. So you need to write the right kind of assessment for human beings. If you're writing assessment for AI, AI is going to answer it. Yes, the bigger questions around good and bad with AI is exactly what we're doing, and after today's event, the policy briefing that's been shared in the room, we can share with everyone on the online chat as well. I won't go into too much detail there because you can read it in the form, but we're very much talking about how, if you're going to use AI, how it can be used for good. And I think one of the core arguments I keep kind of banging the drum on is it's an incredibly resource-intensive technology or systems to be using in a small Holocaust museum or a memorial site that might not even have a digital department, or I'm doing the digital in my spare time kind of context. Why invest in AI? There's probably better things you could be investing in. But what you could be doing is thinking about how you can inform in the existing AI spaces and the existing AI industry as such. So that's a kind of quick summary response to the AI question.
Okay, we have a really nice question from our colleague and friend Angela Shapiro, gathering the voices. She asked, will you be working with smaller archives such as our own, which maybe brings back to your earlier slide about how other people can get involved as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, well, you'll see the walkthroughs here for those that are in the room. We have several examples on iPads that people can have a look at. And this was done with a £10,000 grant from the British Academy, which was the kind of scoping research that led to Landecker having some trust in us to do this work. That was a very small pot of money. We went to 14 European institutions, 2 in America, 1 in Australia. It's quite a lot with £10,000. We now have a 5-year project. We now have more than 11 weeks to do field work. So absolutely. We started with some of the better known, the bigger projects, and we tried to take a bit of a kind of global diverse spread of projects for that, looking what was happening in different countries. We absolutely want to look at smaller organisations. We absolutely want to work with them.
Could I just say we're very interested in small archives. We're putting together, part of our legacy for IRA is we're putting together a portal. We're working in conjunction with the Shaw Foundation, a number of rather large archives. But the idea is to bring small archives in. And basically, if you were a survivor and given testimonies, 5 different testimonies over a year, just by keying in your name, we'd get every single one of your of that testimony. So we are particularly interested in small archives. So if you'd be kind enough to pass on that, these keys must work.
Absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that. I think Lucy, you have a question.
Hi, I'm Lucy Huberman. I'm on the advisory board of the Weidenfeld Institute. Vicky, I don't want to put too much strain on your voice, but I'm very interested in hearing a bit more about the interdisciplinary labs you're going to be holding with your research partners in different countries. My feeling is if you are finding issues between 2 disciplines discussing the use of the word reconstruction, you're going to find it a much bigger issue to deal with several cultures. Are the questions that the labs are going to be discussing, the innovations you're hoping for, going to be open, or are you setting challenges in advance of the labs for specific labs to address?
So I'll come to the first point actually about interdisciplinarity first and terminology, because it seems silly to start having a conversation. We think we can talk to each other, right? And then you realise that you're having 2 different conversations. You do, hang on, we've just wasted a day, and we're not actually having a dialogue. We're not listening to each other. And listening has been a really important part of this project. And the recommendation reports out there prove that we can do that. And with that, we asked the people being involved to come with 2 or 3 questions. We collected it on a Padlet, everyone's favourite COVID-era online resource. And then we posed their questions back at them in kind of expert groups, so their own profession, asked them to discuss those, and then mix them up and asked them to talk about what they were talking about in their different groups. And we asked them to ask each other about terminology. What do you mean by that term, even if it was familiar with them? So part of the design sprints that we do, the beginning part of the kind of design methodology will be about introducing where you're coming from with your discipline, talking about the kinds of terminology you use and breaking that down and starting to break those silos and understand how to talk to each other. In terms of whether they're open or not, I mean, we're going to be working with our partners, so I think in each context it might be slightly different. The regionality might be different, so when we're in Serbia, it might be kind of opening up to the whole of the Balkans, for example. We have 2 different partners in Germany, so how we work with them in terms of which regions we look at from there, I think will be down to how we work with our partners. We signed the contracts last week, and they were finalised, so now we can have proper conversations about process. But yeah, I think for us, it probably... Where I would prefer to be with it is that we introduce a very well curated group of people. We get the right people in the room who kind of want to be there and come from the right kinds of discipline. What we don't want to have is 20 people from the Holocaust memory and education organisations talking about technology they don't understand. We want a mix of people who do and don't in that sector. We want people from the kind of big tech industry, and we want smaller indie creators and academics as well. We want that mix. And we don't just want humanities people, we want people from the computer science and social sciences. So we need to curate that mix, I think. That would be my kind of initiative. But it is a partnership with each of our partners, so it will be a conversation with them. Right, I'm conscious of the time, so I'm going to say thank you very much for your questions. In one moment, I'm going to pass on to James Baldwin very quickly, who's the lead curator here of the Holocaust Galleries. James is just going to give you a quick introduction before you're welcome to go into the galleries. As I said, the drinks and everything else, they'll also be open, chat, mingle, enjoy yourselves. I will ask our speakers and Imperial War Museum colleagues to just hang in the room after James has finished for a few minutes, as we have a little thank you gift for all of you for all of your help. And a massive thanks to Claire Lawler and James for allowing us to host our event here. I went to I spoke at my first conference, or I chaired my first conference panel during my PhD at the Imperial War Museum, and the institution has been kind of close to my heart for that kind of journey. So thank you very much. It's really meaningful personally. James, do you want to come up and do your intro?
Thank you so much. Welcome to Imperial War Museums from all of us. I'm just going to talk really briefly about the galleries, but as ever, if you've got any questions about them, please do come and speak to me. A lot of what Vicky's been saying tonight and a lot of what's been covered this evening has been of specific interest to me, because I feel like in many respects the galleries were kind of born out of the same moment, memory moment, this kind of tipping point of Holocaust memory into the new age. The new galleries that hopefully some of you will go and visit today were very much designed and approached with the underlying assumption that it was possible to do things differently. We surveyed a number of different Holocaust museums across the world, and I know that Vicky and her team will go to these places, and observed a really kind of singular, or broadly speaking, a relatively singular way of approaching the Holocaust in museological spaces. I would say that largely derives from the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in DC. There was an assumption that Holocaust museums should be dark, they should be about industrialization, they should be about this kind of singular sense of oppressive history. And what we started to think as we looked at our approach is to think, well, actually there are problems with that. Dark spaces condition a sense of inevitability, and that's a real problem. As soon as you walk into a dark space, it conditions you to see the narrative as moving necessarily, teleologically in a single direction, and we wanted to disrupt that. We think dark spaces also have the inadvertent consequence of condemning any Jewish individuals within the space to a narrative, a singular narrative of victimhood, nothing else. It denies them the capacity for agency, and that for us was a real problem. The other thing is that dark spaces, I think, condition a sense that the Holocaust somehow happened on the underside of the broader trajectory of normative Western culture. That somehow there was this aberrant moment 80 years ago where humanity stepped outside of itself, and then after the war it stepped back in again and left that behind. And what we were trying to say in the galleries is that the Holocaust didn't happen despite who we are or despite Western culture and civilization. It happened because of those things. It happened directly through the centre, and that was the approach that we took in the galleries. So the first thing that you'll see when you do go up there is that the galleries are light spaces, they're not dark spaces. We try and address those issues. The other thing which we wanted to do, and I won't talk for too long about this, all of this, because otherwise we'll be here all night, is that the Holocaust was something that happened in our world. There can be somehow a tendency, particularly for younger visitors who are just conditioned on seeing black and white imagery, to somehow think that the Holocaust happened in different, unknowable, distant past that was experienced fundamentally differently to the way that we experience this current moment. Somehow people didn't emote or feel in the past because it was beyond, it's over a threshold of the imagination. And we wanted to say that the Holocaust very much happened in our world, and we walk amongst its traces. It's not something that happened behind us, it's something that happened around us. And you'll see that in the galleries too, this use of contemporary imagery, etc. And the other thing which I'll talk about, because it speaks to very much what's been discussed tonight, is we wanted to be really careful about laying bare our own process in the galleries. So we didn't want to make the claim that we were offering the single authoritative, definitive narrative of the Holocaust. We wanted to be very clear about the fact that there are experts across the world in different organisations working on this subject, and in plotting it, to borrow Hayden White's phrase, differently. And ours is just a contribution to a global discourse on the subject. So rather than suggesting that we're the first word or the last word on the subject, we wanted to be very clear about the fact that we are sitting within a much larger picture. So the whole approach in the gallery seeks to lay bare our own process and says that this is a decision of the people who created these galleries. This isn't a seamless narrative. This is a narrative that explicitly has seams. It's constructed from fragments because that's the way that history works, and that's the way that we work together to make sense of the past, to look at the present and to look into the future. I'm really happy to talk to anyone who wants to talk to me about these things, but I'm conscious that you've been sitting here for quite a long time and you probably want to get up and maybe go to the galleries or probably go and get a drink. So that's all I'll say for now, but as I say, if you do want to come to me, please do. And one last time, thank you so much for coming to the Imperial War Museum. It's great to have you.
And if you do want to go to the galleries, they're on level 2. Yes, Claire's nodding at me. Like. Thank you all for coming, and thank you for those who have joined us online as well.